Welcome. It is great to have you here. It's Wednesday afternoon, and you know what that means. If it's 2 o'clock Central Time, it's time to get together. I like to get together every other Wednesday afternoon at 3 o'clock Eastern, 2 o'clock Central, and have a chance to talk about accountability. Accountability in our lives as individuals, accountability in our organizations, accountability in the community. And I love the fact that you join in here live. Many of you watch the recording afterwards. That's great also. Remember, I will always work very hard to answer all your questions. If you're here live, put your question in the comments. If you're not here live, you can still enter your question in the comments, and I will check back, look at those questions, and I'll either answer them directly in the comments or I'll address some of those issues in a future live stream. If there's something that you want me to address specifically, please be sure and put it in the comments as we look at those comments closely and we incorporate that content in future live streams. As you come into the room, don't hesitate to put in the comments where you're watching from. And we always love to see who's here and who's participating and how we can be of service to you. So today, what I really wanted to do is talk about the whole idea, the concept of accountability during a crisis or accountability during the pandemic. You can look at it either way, because the pandemic really has created a crisis situation for so many people and organizations and communities and different entities of a variety of sorts. And so how do we build accountability during the crisis? Now, this is sort of a trick question and a trick topic, because the answer really, really is we need to do our work ahead of time. Here's what I've discovered. We, for the most part, are going to handle a crisis best when we've dealt with and built accountability into our organizations and our lives ahead of time. I'm going to address that, and I'm going to tell you exactly how to do that. But first, I want you to know that if you're watching, we just came out with book was just released 2 weeks ago, The Accountability Circle. I know a bunch of you have copies, and I've received feedback, and that's fantastic. I appreciate it. In January, we have our next book, my next book coming out, Pivot, all about it's 3 big questions that reframe your perspective, maximize your potential, and improve your life. And guess what? You can't get this book anywhere. It is not available until 2021. But we have some advanced reader copies, and we're going to give these away. So if you stay to the end of this recording, I'm going to tell you exactly how you can get a free copy, and I want to get these in your hands so you can be reading it and get a jump start on those people who aren't a part of the live streams. So just a few minutes from now, I will share with you how you can get a copy of Pivot in advance as my gift to you. So, back to what's at hand, accountability during a pandemic. And here's what I want you to think about. When you think about the military, you know what? They have maneuvers. They go out on maneuvers all the time. What are maneuvers? They're practice runs, they're drills, they're preparing for the real deal. And hospitals, they run drills, they have emergency response training, they have to put on all their gear, they have to go through the exercises. What happens if there's a big trauma event in the community? And they go through these drills and training. And even at school, remember when we were in school and they had fire drills and they'd ring that bell? Then we all had to go outside and find our spot and be there, because they were preparing us in case of something going wrong, in case of a crisis. And what I've seen is that we need to be doing the same things in organizations. We need to prepare in case of. But now here's the good news. You know that fire drill that we did every year at the beginning of the school year? Fortunately, there was never a fire in my school. We never had a real live fire situation. But in the case of our lives, in the case of the business and building an organizational culture, all the prep work and training that we do for a potential crisis situation is just going to pay dividends day in and day out, week in and week out, throughout the year, through the years in our organization. So it's not like we're preparing for something that may never happen. When we build accountability into our organization, it will pay dividends. And all of our research has shown those organizations that test out as being the most highly accountable, and we have an assessment tool that measures that, those organizations always create the greatest growth, the greatest sustainability, and outperform their competition. So we want to prepare in advance. What does this look like? Well, let me give you a couple examples of some organizations that I've seen during the pandemic who have faced challenges and have responded brilliantly. And I want to reverse engineer and let you know what went into getting there. One organization in St. Louis, Missouri, actually is an ice cream shop called Clementine's. And this ice cream shop, they recently opened a new store, and this was all at the outset of the pandemic, which is not when you want to be opening a new restaurant. But recently I read where their volume was up actually 400%, and they had to hire 10 new workers. Well, what happened? The volume that went up was the volume of packaged ice cream. So their packaged pints of ice cream, sales of those things are up 400%. They needed more employees. There's a reason why those packaged sales are up, and there's a reason why they are able to capitalize on that market. Another restaurant, and I'm showing you a couple of restaurants because these are tough industries. There are thousands and thousands of restaurants, privately small owned, family owned businesses that have been put out of business by this pandemic, by this crisis. And Katie's Pizza is going great guns. Their restaurant business isn't what it used to be, but their delivery business is incredible. And what they've done, and I want you to hear this, what they've done is they've taken employees that were in the service side of the business, serving in the restaurants, and they've repositioned them to deliver the pizzas. And so what they've been able to do is protect their loyal employees. They are loyal to their employees. That's why the employees are loyal to the organization. You see, this all rises and falls on leadership. Accountability is always the highest form of leadership. Accountability always starts with the leader. That's where it begins. So, as we know, accountability is keeping our commitments to people. But we're not talking about the tactical commitments. I'll be there at a certain time. I'll get a certain job done. I'll perform the tasks, the things that correlate with my job. The relational commitments those are what create accountability. Now, relational commitments are like a commitment to live the values. And those two examples that I just shared with you, I'm sure that those organizations have very meaningful values. Values are never about things. Policies are about things. Values are about people. And so when you have values that are about people and you're making and keeping and living those values, then that is a relational commitment. A commitment to it's all of us, which says if you fail, I fail. It's only when you succeed that I succeed. That's a powerful commitment. And when a leader is committed to that, then what happens is they're able to build a relationship with their people over time. And what happens is those people appreciate that relationship and they repay that commitment and that relationship by being loyal in return. So where does accountability show up in an organization? Well, where it shows up is it shows up in the culture. Now, all organizations have a culture. Some have a culture by design. Some have a culture by default. A culture by default is anything goes. A culture by design is a culture that has specifically been designed by leadership through the values. It's been modeled, it's been taught, it's been protected, it's been celebrated. There's a whole process. And this culture, when it's an amazing culture that prioritizes accountability, then what happens is it inspires everyone in the organization to want to be accountable, to want to be their best. And it's when you get everyone in the organization wanting to be accountable and wanting to be their best that they perform at a level that goes beyond what other organizations are able to perform at. So it's about building that culture. Now, what happens when we build a culture based on a set of values that shows that we value people, that we care about people, we care about their well-being, their livelihoods, their families? Well, in that sort of culture, what happens is you attract the best and you retain the best people. It's also a culture where the leaders have eliminated bias. It's a culture where the people know that the leader wants to hear what you, an employee, think. Now, let's just say I have a company here, and let's say I have 10 employees, 15 employees, 100 employees, 100,000 employees. It doesn't matter what the number is. If I think I have all the answers, and we know leaders that do that, if I think I have all the answers, then guess what? People around me aren't going to want to share their thoughts, their solutions, their ideas, their answers to the challenges we face. But when I create a culture that shows gratitude and appreciation, that shows that I value the people in the organization, they will want to contribute ideas. And it's in the contribution of those ideas that we come up with the things that we need to be doing during a crisis, during a pandemic. We have to change how we think and change what we do to survive in difficult times. But we create the environment that fosters the ability to make those changes in good times. The clients that we get called in to work with in these times that are struggling now because they didn't prepare themselves in the good times. Now, just so you know, reminder, at the very end of this program, I'm going to be sharing how to get your very own copy of Pivot, which will not be available on the market till next year. And if you have any questions that you want me to answer, put them in the comments because they show up. Chris, I appreciate you being here. Thank you so much. It's always a pleasure. And Chris does some amazing work out there. If you need some video work done, man, let me tell you, he's your guy, without a doubt. Okay, so we've developed this culture. We have built a culture around values. We've built a culture where people feel that they are valued, that they have a voice, that they want to be heard. Now, we're moving into this crisis situation. What do? Well, one of the most important things we can do as a leader is make sure that we stay connected to our people. So when you're in an office environment, it's easy to stay connected. You walk over, you knock on the door, you say hi, you can engage in a conversation. But when people are scattered, when people are working from home, then we need to find other ways to stay connected. And we have so many Zoom meetings and things of that nature. We need to find ways to be unique, to be different. Maybe it means calling them. Yeah, actually calling on the phone, finding out what's going on, not just from a business standpoint, but from a personal aspect. And the next thing is maybe you need to drive by, pick key employees that you want to stay in touch with and drive by and call them and say, hey, I'm in your front yard. Stick your head out the front door. Let's stand at a good social, safe distance and let's talk for a few minutes and find out what's going on in their world. Find out what's going on with their family. Find out the challenges that they are facing. Because working from home when you have a spouse at home, kids at home, other relatives is not the same as working from home was a year ago when you were the only one at home. So in a crisis situation, we're going to build on the foundation that we laid when times are good. In a crisis situation, we need to find new ways to communicate with our people, to stay connected to our people. We need to make sure that our people know that we care about them. It's not business as usual. We're just working from home because we're facing other challenges at home. And once your people know that you care about them, well, guess what? They care about you. They want you to succeed. They want the organization to succeed. And if you have created an environment where people's voices are welcome, then they will speak up. They will share ideas. They will help you come up with ways to manage the crisis. Being able to create an accountable organization during a crisis situation is based on being able to create an accountable organization before the crisis ever presents itself. I see this over and over again. If we go back to 2008 and 2010 with the big financial recession that we had, those organizations that fared the best were the ones that had created a culture that inspired and prioritized accountability while the times were good. There is never a better time than the present to start building that culture. And here's the bottom line for those of you that are leaders that are listening in. There is no transformation that can take place in an organization until the transformation takes place in the leader. If your organization and the culture of your organization is not where you want it to be, then the transformation that we need to talk about making will always start with us, the leader. And when we accept that responsibility and we step through that door of transformation, then we position ourselves to transform the organization, the culture, to help our people be their very best. And then we are best positioned to handle a crisis and to build a sustainable organization that weathers any storm. Now, I told you if you stuck to the end, I had a surprise, and you could get your very own copy of Pivot. So here's all you have to do. Send an email to pivot@samsilverstein.com, and you will be entered in a random drawing. So it's not first come, first serve, because we're going to do this for the next 48 hours. Just send an email to Pivot, PIVOT, @samsilverstein.com. Tell me you want to be entered in for a free book. We'll put you in the drawing, and we're going to draw off, I don't know, I've got 6 books here that my publisher gave me that we can give away. I want to give them all away. I'm only going to announce this in 2 places, on this live stream and over on Instagram. That's the only way you'll be able to get the book. Send the email in. And if you want to see where you are on the 10 commitments of accountability, go take the free personal assessment at IamAccountable.com. Or actually, let me correct that. It's AmIAccountable.com. It's a free 2-minute assessment. It'll give you more insights into your style as a leader, and I think you'll find that to be helpful. Thank you for being with me today. Remember, I am Sam Silverstein, and accountability is the highest form of leadership. Have a wonderful Thanksgiving. Send your email in. I hope you're one of the lucky winners of my new book, Pivot.